Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with Danny Corsun, founder of the Culinary Judaics Academy. Welcome, Danny. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you for having me, Deb.
So, before we dive into, because, well, let's face it, we both love food and cooking, and I would imagine that's what the audience is tuning in for. But what is Culinary Judaics Academy?
Culinary Judaics Academy is my latest baby. Over the course of COVID, I created basically a Netflix-esque platform that provides essentially the master class for Jewish learning through cooking. So it's kind of a out-of-the-box way of approaching spirituality and faith, Jewish specifically, in a way that's very experiential, very tactile, but it teaches Jewish lessons woven into the fabric of a complex cooking class. Important to note, not Jewish cooking, not necessarily Jewish cooking. We make all different foods. Food is simply my vehicle to teach the greater end game, which is whatever thematic lesson we're teaching.
Well, now I need an example.
Okay. So the food can be very specific to the lesson. So if like we have a holiday series, right? So if I'm doing Passover or Shavuot, both of which we've just celebrated not too long ago, I could make charoset or I could make cheese blintzes, for Shavuot, specific to the holiday, So that's an example of the specific nature of the food. If I'm teaching in our Jewish values series, Gemilut Chasadim, acts of loving kindness, I can make sun-dried tomato risotto. That's the lesson we provide and the recipe provide. Clearly not a Jewish recipe by no means, however delicious. But if you've ever made risotto, you got to put a lot of love, a lot of kindness, a lot of patience in to make it correctly. That's my in to teach Gemilut Chasadim. So the structure of every class is the same. Every workshop, the pedagogy is three things. A, I'm going to provide you a cooking connection to whatever the theme is that we're talking about. Gemilut Chasadim, how does food play a role in acts of loving kindness in my world? How does acts of loving kindness work its way into my food? Two, I'm going to provide you a Jewish connection. I'm going to honor 4,000 rich, beautiful Jewish history. I'm going to teach a Torah, a Talmud, whatever, but I'm not going to do it in a lecture or a text study. I'm going to do it inside of a cooking class. And the third is how we're a little bit different than most people who do this type of work. I'm going to provide you a contemporary lens through which to look at your Judaism. In other words, you're not only Jewish because your mother's mother's mother was Jewish, right? You're Jewish because it's a very rich, beautiful religion that can empower you on a minute-by-minute basis during the course of your life to kind of help you negotiate the minefields of your life, right? So it's going to help you on literally decision-making on a daily basis. And so all of a sudden, Judaism becomes relatable, personal, and usable. And we put it up on its feet. And so all of our students, no matter their age, 5, 105, they're like, oh my gosh, you mean I could actually use this? And it's really empowering and transformational, really.
Well, and my tagline for the show is bite-sized conversation about food, cooking, and community. And you're just like a merge of all three.
Totally. I mean, we're look, who doesn't, first of all, I'm preaching to the choir who doesn't love food, right? Who
Right.
doesn't love eating? Who doesn't love eating really good food? Food is social, right? So initially, you're already breaking down the barriers, right? Then, if you're creating this incredible learning opportunity and you're doing so as a community, um, and the experiential nature of learning, I can get into the data that talks about experiential learning and how it's been proven that you're cognitively processing, retaining far better, far longer by actually feeling, touching, tasting, smelling, right? Then it's hitting on all cylinders. At the end of the day, you're having a blast, right? With your friends, your family, and you're learning and you're becoming your best self, honestly.
Well, definitely preaching to the choir because there, and you know this, people have been paying attention. I am a reformed non-cook, and I can't believe at how life-changing
Yeah.
cooking is. And you don't have to be wonderful. You
No,
just have to be enjoying the experience, because that's what cooking is all about. It's not just the eating.
it's true. You really and truly do not, people who say to me, I can't cook, like, you just don't want to cook, right? Like this is what recipes are for, right? You can read, you just have to manage, you just have to prepare and plan because it requires that. But if you're able to do those things, there's no reason why you can't cook. And honestly, once you start, then you'll yes, you may make some mistakes, but you're going to catch the bug, right? And here's the other thing. Like, chefs become chefs not because they're paid $1 million. Not everybody's Bobby Flay, right? Not everybody's
Right.
on TV. You know, the reason a chef becomes a chef is because they're making people happy. Food does things to people. The word comfort food, right, is a term for a reason. You're comforting people, you're sustaining them, you're nurturing them, you're caring for them, you're loving them. And so food has this quality. This is why chefs become chefs, right? Well, open space kitchens and restaurants are now all the rage, right? Well, it's not only the people that can look into the kitchen, it's about the chef being able to look out and seeing all of these people with smiles on their faces eating their food, making them incredibly proud and happy. So food has, is a really powerful thing.
And just talking about this makes me smile, because it's beautiful, and it's beautiful on both sides of the oven, the
Yeah,
whatever.
both sides of it, in the oven, out of the oven. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, okay, we get the point. So, what drove you to become a chef?
So I am from a family of really good cooks. My grandmother was an incredible baker. Her rugelach recipe is a staple of mine for Yom Kippur breakfast. Everybody comes for my grandmother's rugelach. Tweaked it a little bit, but so she was a fantastic cook and baker. My mother was a very good Jewish cook, so she made Jewish food hands down better than anybody I've ever had. My sister, fantastic cook, baker. My brother actually did it for a living, owned his own restaurant, was a chef at his own restaurant in Manhattan, and now is in academia and runs the hospitality school at a major university. So cooking is kind of an innate quality. I was an educator. First of all, I spent 13 years in the entertainment industry, writing, producing. Then I got into education, started teaching, and I was substitute teaching. Classroom opened up. It was a special needs classroom. They needed a substitute for 5 days. They said, "Could you do it?" I said, "Sure." I had not one day teaching special needs. It was high functioning autistic, a bipolar. At the time, Asperger's was a classification, and all learning disabled and behavior issues. I went in, I hit reboot, right? And even, years later, somebody said to me, you were using your Jewish values series even then, before you even conceived of the fact that you created, because of what you were doing for these children. And so I created a program whereby I taught the math, the science, the history, but also occupational therapy, speech therapy, psychological therapy, woven into the fabric of a cooking class. And all of a sudden, my students started to excel in ways they never did before. Socially, they were able to coexist. Now, I had to break down the barriers that existed between my classroom and the rest of the school, because my classroom was the room you don't go near, was isolated. The kids, they don't talk to those kids. So I invited 5 general ed neurotypical students into my classroom to take part in that class that I taught every week. We catered a snack for 50 kids, brought it back to the classroom those kids came from, and had a party at the end of the day. By the end of the week, after doing that with a couple of classrooms, my room went from the room you don't go near to the cool cooking room every student in that school wanted into. And my kids were no longer the kids you ridicule or ostracize, but the cool kids that bring us food. My principal did cartwheels. She's like, "I need you to do this with the rest of the school." I did. My 2-week gig lasted 5 years in that classroom, and I had developed this program. I hit a wall teaching that population. I needed to do something else. And I said, I have this thing. It's fantastic. Let me do this for a living. So I retired from that one classroom, started Culinary Kids Academy, which was just general studies for children, and started doing it in classrooms all over Los Angeles. And then in '09, I went to Valley Beth Shalom here in Los Angeles, Rabbis Feinstein and Schulweis, and I said, I could do for you what I do in a secular environment, replace the math, science, history with Jewish studies, values-based, meaningful Jewish studies. They were, and still are, in Rabbi Feinstein, out-of-the-box thinkers. They said, that sounds cool, let's give it a shot. From that point, it was the springboard for Culinary Judaics Academy to be born, and to rebrand from just being for youth to a post-COVID world where this is for all ages. Literally, we are in independent and assisted living facilities around the country with my Netflix content being utilized as programming, and preschools. So we got 5 to 105 that are experiencing this, again, transformational program to not just become their best Jewish selves, just to become their best selves, as I said before.
I love, so it was like predetermined, and you basically jumped on in, and
Mhm.
this is what you created. And isn't that kind of like the way the coolest things happen?
So I think I'm the poster child for everything you've ever done in your life, you bring with you, and it informs everything you're doing right now, right? So if you would have told me when I got out of the entertainment industry that I'd be back making 15-minute TV shows of high quality, of Food Network quality, I would have said you're crazy. But that's what enabled me to do this, to have that background and that expertise. And so, I also, by the way, it all is organic, because when COVID hit and I was 100% in person, it was pivot or die, and die wasn't an option. So I took my background, I leveraged the entertainment, I turned my backyard into a film studio. I went to my daughter, who was bubbled up in her room as a senior at Jewish Day School. I said, how'd you like to pivot the business with me? She's like, that sounds cool. And I got a rock star staff of curriculum writers from day school, religious school, Hillel, camping movements, and we put together the most robust written curriculum that goes with every single workshop. And like I said, the Netflix videos. And so now we're in schools and camps I'm talking, hopefully, God willing, like all of these major organizations that reach large swaths of Jewish population, to be the distribution engine for this to get into every single Jewish home we can make it happen.
Well, I am all about the goals and the mission because
I got them.
see my entire life just colliding in this thing.
I
Uh,
think I said to you, I've been in if you build it, they will come mode for the last
mhm,
3 years, and it's
yes.
time for them to come.
And you're talking, and I'm reminded. So my background's journalism, and I actually started out as a broadcasting major. I couldn't decide, and I ended up graduating with news editorial. And this was like pre-social media, so I'm basically working in this world that didn't exist when I was in school, but
Sure.
going back to those broadcasting roots and putting all the things together. And perfect
And look what
recipe.
you're doing now.
Let's mix in some food, right?
I had the best job ever, right? Like when they say you shouldn't work a day in your life, like that's me, right? Like, and as far as the mission, Abraham Joshua Heschel said Judaism should be caught, not taught. I am all about that, right? Like if you create the most dynamically engaging, delicious way of teaching really meaningful, Jewish lessons, then people are going to be all in, and you're going to have an impact far greater than I could ever ask for.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about cooking because I
Yes,
feel like we've like whetted
please.
everybody's appetite. We need to talk about actual food.
Yeah,
Cooking is easy, right? As long as you think that it can be.
sure.
What tips do you have for people who need to embrace that philosophy? And do you have a nice, easy recipe to share?
Okay, so first of all, most of the people I say who can't cook are simply intimidated, right? Knife skills, they may be afraid to get cut, right? Like, so it's about being familiar with your knives. It's about having, doesn't have to be expensive equipment. Every single workshop we've done, we have 6 different series, and the 7 workshops per series, so like over 40, 50 pieces of content. Every single one of those recipes are approachable, right? And you don't need fancy schmancy equipment for them, right? Bowls, knives, right? A heating source, you're good, right? Like I don't need like this major, professional grade mandolin, for you to cut the stuff that I'm asking you to cut. So the point is that choose things that aren't intimidating, right? Know that it's okay to mess up. Like I do a crepe making class for Shavuot for when we make blintzes. I'm like, you're going to throw out the first one. I guarantee you, I don't care if you're Wolfgang Puck, you're going to throw out the first crepe because that's just the way it is. Were you going to say
Wouldn't
something?
you throw it in your mouth though?
Yeah, they always even if they look bad, they taste good. That's the thing you also got to know. There's no mistake taste wise, right? So at least crepe wise. So, but in the meantime, right? Like if you get good at it, maybe the first one isn't getting thrown out. So like, don't be like so critical of yourself that everything has to be perfect. It's about figuring it out, right? And how do you figure out? It's just trial and error, right? Choose recipes that you like to eat and you'll like to make them, right? If you have somebody, especially kids, that say they don't want this, they don't want that, get them involved, right? I had a nutritionist come over my house who said she couldn't get her own child to eat. And she was embarrassed because this is what she does for a living. I'm like, okay, you need to go away because you could be part of the problem. And then I did a lesson with the young man, and it wasn't a child, it was a young man. And we made butternut squash soup together. And it was actually laced with soft silk and tofu for protein because she was worried he wasn't eating enough protein. She came back 45 minutes later, jaw on the floor, watching him polish off 3 bowls of it, right? So it's about taking a stake in the process and having it be empowering. And by the way, you and I have talked about this. Cooking is totally therapeutic, right? Like it's a Zen time to be by yourself or with somebody else socially. It's a very social experience too. But it's a time to just be able to take a breath and unplug for a little bit and then nurture yourself or others, with the food that you're making.
Do
As
you
far as
have do you oh, you're gonna answer a question. So
yeah.
what is a good, easy recipe that everybody's gonna love?
Okay, so I'm all about really easy recipes. I make some stuff that's tough too, but I like easy stuff. So I'm a big fan of things that don't require a whole lot of cleaning time. That's my least favorite part of cooking. Although here's another tip: clean while you go. Okay, so that's the thing. Most people, have all these pots and pans and dishes and silverware and all this other stuff, and it's piled up in the sink. If you clean as you go, when you are done, you will not have a mountain of things to clean up. And so you won't be like looking at it the next time going, oh, I don't want to do this because I spent 45 minutes cleaning. So but if you can do things in 1 or 2 pots, then you're the master, right? You're like, it does take a lot of time. So I have a 1-pot pasta. It's a 1-part farmer's market pasta. So I'm a vegetarian. We don't eat meat in the house. So I try to get really inventive in terms of the foods we eat to give us the proteins we need. But this 1-pot pasta is amazing because you're literally making the sauce and the pasta at the same time, because the key is using a vegetable broth or vegetable stock as the liquid that boils the pasta, and you are simultaneously making the sauce as well. So you're never having to take pasta, put it in a bowl, drain it, and then put it into the sauce. It's one of the easiest recipes I've ever made, and one of the more delicious ones. I did a class for a large Jewish organization. It was a fellowship, and it was during COVID, so everybody was doing Zoom cooking classes. So I did for like probably 20 people in this fellowship, and I did that 1-pot pasta recipe. And I got a call last week from the person who ran that fellowship for a completely different project that we may work on together. But she was like, guess what? I talked to one of those fellows just 2 days ago, and they said, guess what I made yesterday? And she's like, what? She goes, one pot pasta. So like even 2 years later, the woman's making the recipe. So clearly it's a good one, and one that she embraced.
So if you go to jewishjournal.com for the recap, the full recipe will be there.
Yes.
So this has
Delicious.
been so much fun talking food with you, Danny. Where can people learn more about you?
So the website is culinarygudaicsacademy.com. Very easy. On there is all different fantastic information about me, but about the product, about how you can get a hold of it. There's a sample episode on there that has literally the best mac and cheese. It's a sweet potato mac and cheese recipe that Zoe and I teach everybody to make. And it teaches what was the Rabbi Schulweis and is the theory of predicate theology, which is don't just pray for the miracle, help be the person who makes the miracle, right? So that recipe is the first recipe Zoe ever made on her own that she could own and lean into, which again is the vehicle for teaching how to make God a verb, essentially, be the miracle maker. So you can go on the homepage, culinarygudaicsacademy.com for that, and then scroll down, and then you'll see a tab that will take you to all the series that we've created that's available for everybody to use in their own homes, no different than you would stream the British Baking Challenge on Netflix.
Yeah, I love it. And this is the other reason why I always put a recipe in each article, because that's the thing that bothers me about cooking shows is they like tease you
Right.
with these foods. But
Right.
no, this way you get to learn something and make the food. So it's win-win for everybody. Thank you so much, Danny, for this taste of what you have created and the inspiration for people to cook more. Thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. You can subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform, and go to jewishjournal.com to get recipes and read the articles that go with each episode. You can also learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. Whether you love to cook, you love to eat, you love to both, we thank you for tuning in. And until next time, bon appetit.